Hello, Steve White, Trickboy89, Steve Arts 89. What's happening with CBS? Um, there's a few rumours, and they are just rumours and speculation, and I don't actually think any of them are real or happening, but I kind of would like them to. The suggestion is because of CBS's situation at the moment, where CBS Viacom, they merged again with Paramount and everything. They had an agreement with the government or whatever to basically pay off their debt. Basically, by merging, they made themselves more viable, and then they just had to pay off the debt, and everything was fine. And then along came Rona, and now I think they have dropped like half their value, so now they're only worth 10 billion or something, and it's very precarious. They may get exemptions or some sort of leeway because of the situation, because it wasn't like they just did it to themselves. So they may be able to keep limping along till they can get themselves out of their debt, which is going to be a lot harder now than it was when they went into the agreement, into the merger. But the other talk is that, because apparently Sherry Redstone is being sued for the merger, because basically people are saying she ran the ship into the ground, which is a bit unfair considering that the ship was going along quite well until Rona came and, capsized it. So there is some talk that she could just sell just to get out of the situation and just be done with it. Now, I wouldn't want that to happen, because Sherry seems to have always valued Star Trek and seems to have always wanted to get Star Trek back to basically go back to the good old days where Star Trek was actually a show people enjoyed, that was made for the fans, that had a following, that had an audience, that made money, and was basically it was the crown jewels, like, the golden goose. It basically was just printing money in the 90s, the 80s and the 90s with Star Trek, and sort of into the noughties until they split the companies and took away the licensing from Paramount and all that mess. So I wouldn't want her to walk away, because I feel like she sort of has Star Trek's best interests at heart, and she understands its value, because she was there when it was. She was one of the few people, I guess, who's still around, who was there when it was actually working and viable. So I hope that doesn't happen. Now, the talk is that Netflix could buy it, because Netflix would want Paramount, would want all their TV shows and all their infrastructure and everything, not the TV stuff, but just the content, not necessarily the infrastructure, but the content. So people are saying that's going to happen, and there's two ways that can happen. Now I'm getting most of this from a very good Midnight's Edge video, because they, as much as they often have an agenda, they do their research, and they are thorough, and I do like their videos. I always have. They are my sort of introduction to YouTube and all of this side of things, and also the tinfoil hat brigade as well, and all that. But I'm getting most of that from them, and their speculation is that either they will just, because it's not worth splitting the company up. They would just sell it as a whole. But the other possibility is that, like Fox did with Disney, they would just sell divisions, like the entertainment division, which is all Netflix would want. And it scares me, because I grew up, like most of, I guess, whoever's watching this and most people out there, grew up with the big studios, Fox, Paramount, Warner Brothers. They'd been around for 70, 80 years. They were mainstays, they were reliable, they had been there forever. And the reality has only just really hit me that Fox is gone. Disney bought Fox, and then they just destroyed it. They changed the name, they changed the branding, they basically put all the content away in a vault, and I don't know. I think they spent, was it 70 billion or something on it? I think that's what I heard. And this is why Disney's in so much trouble that it is now because they had a lot of money and then they went and spent it on assets um, that aren't really paying off, partly because of how they've mismanaged them, like Star Wars and 20th Century Fox. It's like they treated it like competition and just desexed it or something, like cut its balls off basically, and renamed it so it's not competition anymore, and just sort of put all its content away and isn't really using any of it. And a lot of people are scared now because a lot of the 20th Century Fox things that we all grew up with and that we all had access to is now going to be unavailable. That you won't get the DVDs being released, you won't get the shows on Disney Plus and all that. So that's yet to be seen how they're actually going to use all of this. As some people are assuming the worst, that the content's is all going to disappear. Kind of like how Transformers destroyed the GoBots. Like, you don't see the GoBots anymore because Hasbro owns them now, and their competition for Transformers, so they just went away. It's kind of like they did that to 20th Century Fox on some level. That's how it looks, that's how it feels, and just the fact that it doesn't exist anymore. They didn't buy it and then keep it together so they could make money out of it and have it be something that works for them. They just took it apart. And it's gone. 20th Century Fox is gone. I can't believe it. And the idea that this could happen to Paramount as well. And Paramount I had a lot more attachment to. 20th Century Fox had Alien and Marilyn Monroe, stuff like that. But Paramount had Friday the 13th and Star Trek. Some of these things that I just grew up watching all the time. And although they have mismanaged, certainly Friday the 13th, they let that just die. And then they sold it off to a new line anyway. But Star Trek, they did maintain it until they lost control of it. So I really hope this doesn't happen on one level, because it could go really bad, but it also could save it. If someone who has a clue buys all the content, actually uses it, keeps Paramount together as a brand, or somehow just it could go either way. So I'm kind of scared, but I guess, you know, it can't be any worse than it is now, especially for Star Trek. Unless Sherry can just get rid of Kurtzman and get Star Trek up firing again on all cylinders on its own, away from the Bad Robot license and everything, and the Secret Hideout license and Kurtzman and all that. Maybe, I don't know, there's just so many, it's just a mess. What's going to happen? I just want Star Trek back. I want Star Trek as it was. It means a lot to me. I want it back. And I want Paramount to go on. And all these things could end, or they could be saved. And it's just very scary. Everything's scary at the moment. Just the whole world is just